look at things like the competency tiles, the factions, the palace tiles, the innovation tiles, and give them a score. And it can sort of help as a tool to decide, which one should I pick in a given situation. I'll put it out there. This isn't perfect. I think the URP key, definitely debatable. Any of this is debatable. I'm open to hearing that kind of feedback, but I think it's a useful way, at least if it was useful for me, to help decides, is this a good thing to pick at a certain point in time. So the story that I kind of go back to that sort of made me want to do this is, so a good friend of mine and one of the best Terra Mystica players in the world, Aaron Weber. We played AOI together, and I was really into the double dig competency tile because it's kind of cool. In Terra Mystica, digs are very hard to come by, and here it is. You build a school, and you can get a double dig. So that seemed really cool in the beginning, doing that first turn. And he said, you get so much more value for other things. So I kind of wanted to see what that meant, and it's true. Sometimes you need it. Sometimes, in a certain situation, you might want to do it, but you should know what you're giving up. So we'll come back to that when we look at things here. What else? Also, a lot of the work here, is rooted in Terra Mystica, and there's some great thinkers in Terra Mystica. I already mentioned Aaron Weber or Weber AJ on BGA. Also Zoras did a series of videos that really influenced me a lot, and so a lot of these kind of thinkers, I'm standing on the shoulders of giants a little bit to apply some of those principles that are in Terra Mystica to AOI. Okay, so let's get right into it then. So universal resource point key. This is the key up here. So the idea with it is we're holding coins as the constant, and we're going to value the other resources in the game as in relation to coins. And then we're also going to say that 1 coin is equal to 1 victory point. So you can see right here, 1 URP is equal to 1 coin, equal to 1 victory point. That's an assumption decided to use. The other thing to be aware of is that, resources are worth different values to players at different points in the game. So a great example is tools, or thinking Terra Mystica, workers. At the beginning of the game, tools are much more valuable than they are at the end of the game. See, tools are kind of usually the constraining factor when you're building. You tend to have enough coins to do things you want to do, but tools can help you build that, that extra workshop or that extra dwelling in Terra Mystica, that extra, or allow you to do a school, etc., etc. So they're worth more because you can build out your economy early. But at the end of the game, a tool or a worker might be converted to a coin because you don't have so much use for it anymore. In fact, a scholar, similarly, you might convert that to a tool and then to a coin because you have nothing necessarily better to do with it. So it's sort of all of these scores, we think about them as sort of the average score over the course of the game. So that might be the score in round 3, or it might be the average of what the score is in from 1 to round 6. But also understand that this isn't a perfect science. We're just using some assumptions to say one resource is worth more than the other and trying to justify how we came up with the values. But are they debatable? Definitely. But at a certain point, it's just nice to get this set up, and then we can kind of get to the interesting part and apply it to different competencies, factions, etc., etc. Okay, cool. So that being said, one more thing I want to say. I forgot about tools. So, in Terra Mystica, it was suggested after some thought, some of the thinkers in the game suggested that, workers have a mean value of like 2.5. And what I wanted to do is when you look at AOI, I wanted to value it higher because tools are sort of more important in the game. And a big factor of that is a school costs 3 tools and 5 coins as you compared to a temple, which costs 2 tools or 2 workers and 5 coins. So that kind of pressure, adds more pressure to tools. One of the reasons why sort of tools become a little bit more valuable than they were in Terra Mystica. So part of the reason why I put it at 3, but we'll get to tools when we get to the tool slide here. Okay, so let's go and start with power. So I've kind of tried to illustrate this here for people who, because the concept of power can be sometimes a little bit confusing, especially if you're a beginner to Terra Mystica or AOI. But when I talk about power, I talk about it in terms of the power you receive. So if I, for example, receive 1 leech, or someone builds a building next to my workshop, I'm going to get 1 power. And imagine in this scenario, you only have 1 power, and it's sitting here in bowl 1. When you receive that 1 power, it goes to bowl 2. You can't do anything with that power yet. Because you only have 1, you can't burn a power and do anything, so it just sits there. And then when you get the second power, it goes to bowl 3. One of the things you can do with a power in bowl 3, of course, is convert it to a coin. So for that reason, when you get your 2 power, we're saying that equals 1 coin. Or said another way, 1 power equals half a coin, or 1 power equals half a URP. So that's how we got to the first value on here of power being 0.5 URP. Okay. Now let's move over to tools. Okay, so lots of ways you could value tools, but one way I'm going to do it here is look at power again. So, there's received power. We talked about that in the last slide. You receive a power to move a power along. And then there's bowl 3 power. So when eventually you get your power up to bowl 3, it's, like we said, equal to, you can change it into coins. So 3 bowl 3 power equals 3 coins. And the other thing on the conversion chart, of course, is 3 bowl 3 power can be converted into 1 tool. So said another way, 1 tool is equal to 3 coins, which is equal to 3 URP. I put this tool value over time chart just to illustrate what I'd said earlier, that the value of tools is higher at the beginning of the game. Every extra tool you have, as long as you have enough coins, you can invest it and get a workshop, and that will pay you another tool next round. So you're getting like 100% return on your investment when you look at the tools. So that's part of why it's so valuable in the beginning. It's part of why it's, getting the tools power action in the first round, getting the bonus tile that has the 2 tools is really sought after. Maybe only sought after next. The only one that's more sought after is Spades. But that's to illustrate how it's has a high value in the beginning and goes down to a lower value at the end. I'd say in round 6, it's never quite worth 1 coin. Probably a little more than a coin because there's some other value you can get out of it. But this is illustrative, not to say that this is exactly right, just to show how it varies over time. Okay. So anyway, that's how we get that mean value. And I've realized I put median in all this, and as I'm thinking about it, I think mean is a better, or average is a better way to think about it. But that's tools. So we've got power, we've got coins. Coins are always going to be the same because everything is sort of held to the relative value of coins. And now we've got tools at 3. Great. So let's move now to books. Okay, so books is a new resource, doesn't exist in Terra Mystica. So the way that I decided to kind of price the books, essentially we wanted to price them higher than tools and lower than scholars. So if we look at a couple of the book actions, one of the book actions gives you 5 power, so receive 5 power. So that translates to 2.5 bowl 3 power, which is equals to 2.5 coins, which equals to 1 book. So said another way, 1 book equals 2.5 coins or 2.5 URP. So that's sort of one measure. The other way, and a sort of more valuable book action, is spending 2 books to get a free, an upgrade to a guild. Now normally when you upgrade a guild, it costs 2 tools and 3 coins. So if we translate that, the tools we said are worth 3, so that's 6 plus 3, 9. So that's 9 coins. So basically 9 coins equals 2 books. Or said another way, 1 book equals 4.5 coins, or 4.5 URP. So decided on a measure sort of in between these two, and that's where we got that mean value of 3.5. Cool. So that's kind of how we got to books. I do recognize there are other book actions that could price books in different ways, but just decided, this is a nice way to put it in between tools and scholars, which is where I think it should live. But again, open for debate. Okay, so let's talk about scholars now. Worth pointing out that, like tools, I think scholars are more valuable in AOI compared to Terra Mystica, and part of that is because you can do more with them. But let's get into sort of the specifics here. So on the one hand, the low end, if you spend 3 bowl 3 power, you can get 1 scholar. So 3 bowl 3 power equals 3 coins equals 1 scholar, or said another way, 1 scholar equal to 3 coins and or 3 URP. Now, the more expensive way to get a scholar is to use a conversion table. So if we have 5 power in bowl 3, that's equal to 5 coins or 1 scholar. So in this case, 1 scholar equals 5 coins equals 5 URP. So a value in between there is 3.75. Could it have been 4? Sure. That's like right in between. I think that's totally arguable. I could be convinced, but for now we've kind of gone with the 3.75. And I think part of that probably is, scholar certainly could be worth 4 or more in the earlier round, but near the end, sometimes scholars are just, fancy tools, fancy workers. You just need a worker, so you just convert it, or maybe even a coin. So part of that is maybe the depreciation that happens. So, but that's where we came up with scholars. And let's now move to the next slide. And we'll talk about spades. So spades, the low end, like the best value for money on spades, is using the double dig power action. So, you spend 6 bowl 3 power, which is equal to 6 coins, and you get 2 spades. Said another way, that means 1 spade equals 3 coins or 3 URP. Now, the expensive way is when you don't have your digs upgraded right at the beginning, or digs or terraforming upgraded, you have to spend 3 tools to get a spade. And 3 tools in our guide here, 3 times 3 is 9 coins for 1 spade. So said another way, 1 spade equals 9 coins or 9 URP. So a value sort of in between that is 5. And you'll notice 6 would be right in between it, but we chose 5 for this. Similar idea, your spades probably I'd say more people, it's more valuable, it's cheaper to upgrade your digs in AOI. You pay 1 less tool compared to Terra Mystica. I think I'm remembering that right. And so more people do it. There's also other ways to upgrade your digs in AOI, like getting steam power, things like that. So I think, again, it's a little bit of the depreciation that happens. So that's probably why, put it at 5 instead of, say, 6, which is right in between these two. All right, that's spades. Now, I left the most complicated one for last, which is science steps. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so lots going on this page. Don't worry, we're going to break it down bit by bit. But, when I'm valuing science steps, I'm considering like 3 different factors. And science steps, I think, are much more valuable in AOI compared to in Terra Mystica. There's a few reasons for that. Part of it is you have 12 steps instead of 9. And on the 9th step, for example, you get this reward all the way across the board. That's a piece of it. What else here? I think the rewards. Oh yeah, because you have the 12 steps, you can sort of get more out of the rewards. In Terra Mystica, there was only 9 steps, so those 4-point digs, you could only ever get 2. So you're sort of wasting a step in a way. But here, it's quite nice that you get to step 12 and you get 3 digs as an example. And it kind of works nicely too with your three your rewards that require 3 steps. So a lot more value there in AOI. And let's get back to those 3 different pieces that I use to evaluate the science steps. The first one is just power that you gain on the science track. So when you go from 0 to 7 on the science track, and I chose 7 because that's where the key is. A lot of people just go to 7. Over the course of those 7 steps, you're going to get 5 power. You get 1 here, and you go 3 from 2 to 3. You get 2 from 4 to 5, and you get 2 from 6 to 7. So what I'm doing here is taking that 5 power that you receive divided by 7 steps. And 5 power will multiply by the URP key of 0.5. So that's the first one. The second one is that reward that you get on the 9th step. Now what's kind of interesting is that the value of those rewards equals 3 URP in every case, according to the schedule we got here, which kind of makes me feel like, wow, maybe we are sort of pricing things correctly a little bit. So 3 coins is 3 URP. 3 victory points is 3 URP. 6 power, you take 6 and multiply it by 0.5, that's 3 URP. And 1 tool, when you multiply by 3, is 3 URP. So it feels like, oh, it's like a way to say that maybe we got the power, coins, tools, and victory points correct. So anyway, that's when we're looking at the value of the step, we're saying if you get 9 steps on any given science competency, you get 3 URP. So 3 URP divided by 9 is the second piece of doing science steps. The last one is the rewards you get from the round scoring tiles. So I've sort of put them up here, and I'll talk about the specifics there. So basically, I've calculated the value of 1 science step from each of the round scoring tiles. I came up with a figure of 2.29. So I'll talk about how I got there in a second. So the table below sort of shows that if you have a tool reward, for example, every step gives you half of a tool. So there's half of a tool because 2 steps will give you 1 tool. So that's pretty straightforward. And then half of a tool, if you translate that into URP, is 1.5 because 0.5 multiplied by 3 is 1.5. Fair enough. So coins, pretty simple. Every step you get a coin, so 1 step equals 1 coin, and since coins are equal to URP, it's 1 URP. Books, we've got every 3 steps you make get you a book, which means every 1 step is 0.33. We take the 0.33 and multiply by the 3.5 and we get 1.17. A similar story for power, but what's a little bit different is you get a different value. Sometimes you get 4 power for every 3 steps, and sometimes you get 3 power for every 2 steps. So kind of combine those things together. Came up with the 1.42 power per step, which translates to 0.71 URP. And then scholars, you get every 3 steps you're going to get yourself a scholar. So 1 step is worth 0.33 of a scholar. Then we do the math times 0.375, and we get 1.25 scholars per step. Finally, for spades, you get a quarter of a spade because you need 4 steps to get a full spade. Multiply that by the 5 to get 1.25 per step. So I took all of these sort of values and averaged them together. And then I said, usually there's 2 of one color. So usually there's 2 of one color and 2 of another color, and then maybe another one. So I said, actually, you get not just 1 of these values, but 2 of them. So I took the average of these 2, multiplied it by 2, and that's how I got to the value of a science reward step of 2.29. And if you look at just this part of the value even, that's pretty impressive. You're getting a lot of value for science steps. And if you add them all together, I've sort of put the math here. You've got your power steps, you've got your reward steps, and then you've got your science rewards from bonus tiles. Add it all together, and 2.98 URP. So that's how I got to 1 science step equals 2.98 URP. I know that was a lot of sort of theory and math and stuff, but I promise the payoff here is going to be great. So that's it for URP. Now we kind of accept that's URP. Now we get to the fun part where we actually take a look at how we can apply that. Okay, so we're going to look at competency tiles. Now I broke this down into two sort of situations. One is, what if you took the competency tile in the first round? What kind of value would you get over the course of the game? And then later on, I kind of thought, listen, it's not really fair because sometimes you're choosing a competency in the last round and the values are really different. So I did another slide, and we'll get to that after this, on how do you value the competencies if you choose them in the last round? Because it is important to know that just because this competency 12 is number 1 on the list in the first round, guess what? It's not in the second round. Okay, so if you've played much AOI, you'll probably notice a lot of players who've been playing the game very often will choose competency 12 at the beginning, and there's a good reason for it. It is really, really good. You get a lot of value for it. So actually, before I get into that, maybe I'm going to talk about this table a little bit. So I've got all the competency numbers over here, and then pictures of the competencies too. And then I have a thing called expected usage. I'll use that in situations where I have to make a bit of a judgment call to say, how often do I think, in a good game, would you use this competency tile? It's not the maximum that you could use it. You could use it more, and you certainly could use it less. But I'd say in a good game, that's my judgment call. The other scenario is, if it's say income or something, I'd say, how many rounds are you going to get that income or that value? And if you build it in round 1, you're not going to get the income in round 1, but you'll get it for the next 5 rounds. But say if you did something like you had a faction that gave you competency to start the game, inventors, then you get 6. But that's a special situation which I'm not talking about here. So back to competency 12. You get 5 rounds of value. What are you going to get? Here I'm saying, if you got any victory points for the competency tile, not the case for this one. But then we have each of the resources that you get. So I'm taking the raw resources, you get 5 tools and 5 science steps, and then just doing the math on how does that translate to URP, and how does it, if there's any victory points in it, how does it translate to URP and victory points? So in this case, we're kind of talking about URP from a resource perspective and not including victory points, and this is the total including victory points. So as you can see, 29.9. So that's a lot of URP, especially when you compare it to any other competency tile. It's head and shoulders above the rest. There's really nothing close. So this is why it's really important to know if you're not picking competency 12 in round 1. And there are situations where it makes sense, but just know you're giving up something. So and another point I want to make here is what I'm not including in this value is the books and the science steps you get depending on where the competency tiles sit. And it is better from a value perspective to get more books over steps, because books are worth 3.5, steps are worth 2.98, and I think also you can use those books early on, etc. But basically, from a value perspective, it's a little bit more valuable to get the books over the steps, but that's not included in this because, of course, the competencies could sit anywhere. You could get any number of sort of steps or books or colors. Okay, so that's competency 12. The best first round tile, the best econ tile, or pure econ tile. So next we've got competency 9. So 9 is, it's an interesting combination of both victory points and econ. So it's a bit of a hybrid. Again, you get 5 rounds of value and you get 15 victory points. So that's a pretty good amount of victory points. I think you'd be a lot of innovations. You'd be pretty happy to get 15 points to put it into context. And you also get 10 coins. Pretty good. You think about Fire 1 from a Terra Mystica perspective. It's like Fire 1 plus victory points. So pretty impressive. So over the course of the game, you'll get 10 URP from the coins and 15 victory points, so a total of 25 VP plus URP. So this is the, I'd call it the second best round tile, and it provides both econ and victory points. Okay, so let's move on to Competency 7. So another kind of income tile here, pretty popular. It'll give you 5 books and 5 power over the course of a game, which when you translate to URP is worth 20 VP plus URP. So that is, I think the second best pure econ tile. I'm saying pure econ tile because the one above is partial econ and partial victory points. Okay, so now let's get into, there's some of the really good VP tiles coming up. We've got the Scholar Send. So this is the one where every time you send a scholar, you get 2 victory points. You can send it permanently, or you can send it for 1 bump. It doesn't matter, you still get the 2 victory points. I'm saying expected usage is 10. This is could certainly be much higher, but I think it's a reasonable kind of number there. So, but if you do send it 10, this competency will give you 20 victory points. That is nothing to sneeze at. So I'm calling this an elite victory point tile, kind of putting expected victory points between 15 and 20, and certainly could be worth more. There's lots of ways to cheat, additional scholars, and it's also fun to combine it with other things, but right now we're just evaluating what this competency tile gives you versus combining it with other things. So next one, also I'm giving it 20 victory points expected. So this is the Competency 5, the one that gives you 2 points when you pass for every town that you have. And I'm saying expected usage of 10, and so that just means that you'll sort of pass with 10 towns at various points. So it might be 2 towns plus 4 towns, plus 4 towns, something like that. But it's essentially adding up to 10 town passes, which give you 20 victory points. So again, another elite victory point tile. It could certainly be worth more. Okay, so next we look at Competency 1. So this is the one that gives you a tower, which is a 2 power structure, as well as it gives you 2 coins and 2 power income. So this is a very interesting one, and I had to kind of go back to value this a couple of times. The first time I did it, it was really just, okay, you get over 5 rounds, you're going to get 10 coins and 10 power. So you'll notice, there's more power there than 10. I'll explain that in a second. And there's also some victory points there. So how did that sort of get into the calculation? So what I said is I think it's not fair to just talk about the value of the coins and the power and not talk about the fact that you're getting a part of a town there. It's helping you get your town, and ideally you use it to get an incremental town that you weren't going to get, maybe your 4th town or something like that. Because sometimes the problem is you run out of structures, and this can help you get there. So to help give the value of that, I'm saying, because it's a 2 power structure, just like a guild, it gets you 2/7 of the way towards a town. So a town, you need 7 power structures. So that's kind of my justification. Now, what do you get when you get a town? You get a town tile. So the sort of max value town tile is a power town tile, because you get 8 victory points and you get 8 power. So what I'm doing is multiplying that 8 victory points by 2 divided by 7, which gets you the 2.3, and then doing the same for power, which gives you the 2.3 extra power here. Do all the math and translate that to URP. The 10 coins and the 12.3 power equals 16.1 URP. And then the 2.3 victory points added to that is a total of 18.4. So this is the 3rd best. I guess econ tile is the wrong word, because it gives you victory points too in my calc. So I'll fix that. But it's not bad. Middle of the road kind of competency. Okay, and next here, we've got the edge scoring. So Competency 4. This is, I'm calling, a great victory point tile. Maybe people might look at this and say, well, that seems too low. My expected usage in this case is 6, using it 6 times on the edge. Can you do it for more? 100% you can. It takes maybe a little extra work. You got to upgrade your digs. So I can definitely say that we could arguably change the expected usage. So, but either way, it's a great victory point tile. Probably 15 to 20 victory points is totally expected and also could be worth more, but excellent kind of victory point tile. So next one here is the competency 1, and this is the one that gives you victory points when you pass based on your lowest cult. So I'm saying expected usage here of 17, and just like the town pass tile, basically saying that all the lowest cult passes you do over the course of the game add up to 17, which give you 17 victory points. Again, great victory point tile, sort of in that 15 to 20 point range, can be worth more. So you can see we've got the 2 elite ones here and the 2 great ones here, great victory point tiles, elite victory point tiles. They're kind of all in the same range, and I don't know, when I play, I usually want to get all of them because you really want to get as many points as you can get. It's just a matter of sometimes the timing of when you build them or if it's right for your particular strategy, because sometimes it's not. So then we move to competency 3, which I think is the one I like the least. So I'll explain that in a bit. It's not it's not the last one on the list here, but I like it the least. So what do you get? So in this case, you get 6 rounds of using this because it's not income. You get to push that button in round 1. So that makes it a bit better than the income ones. But what you get is underwhelming. So you get 4 power. So over the course of a game, that's 24 power, which translates to 12 URP. And 12 victory points with URP. So I think in most situations it's better to take something else. Are there situations where this can be valuable? Sure. Maybe you really need those 2 books, that particular color of books. Maybe you need to jump up the steps. That's the factor. Or maybe your faction that you're using really wants the power and it's going to be helpful. Once again, I keep blanking on the name of the faction I'm thinking of here. Illusionist, that's it. So I've seen it used to good effect. But this is just about sort of crunching the numbers, and I'd say in a lot of situations it's not that great. So why is it, why do I dislike this more than the rest? You'll see when we go to the next slide and talk about last round ones. So the last 3 on the list here are the ones that give you an immediate benefit. So competency 11 here gives you 5 victory points, 1 tool, and 2 coins. You get it right away. So that translates overall to 10 combined VP plus URP. It feels nice. A lot of players will take this and it's like, wow, that gives me the extra thing I need to build. And it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. There's some value to snowballing, and maybe you can build 1 more workshop. But what are you like? This is that situation where you say, what am I comparing it to? If I build this, take this in round 1, I could get 3 times more value over the course of the game with competency 12. That is really hard to justify. Are there some situations? Yeah, sure, once in a while, but it's like, think about that when you do it. Just like the story I told at the beginning when I talked about the 2 spades. Those 2 spades, if you'd sort of planned it a bit better, maybe gotten the double dig, maybe taken the bridge so you can, if you're black and you can build a workshop, maybe get the single dig. Maybe you take the sailing pass tile so you don't need to do the digs and get your workshops built and your tool economy going. Those things are all kind of much better than getting the double dig in round 1 and giving up 20 points of value when you compare it to competency 12. So that's kind of one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is sometimes things happen. Sometimes really you can't plan for it exactly, and you're just in a situation where it would be better to not cripple your economy and build those 2 workshops, and this is how you get there. Or maybe it helps you get that round 1 town. That's then you get the tool rewards and snowball that and build some more stuff. So there are situations where it makes sense, but always remember, what are you giving up? that's help. I found that helpful. And the last one, is arguably the worst tile to choose in round one, and that's the annexes. So the first time I did the value on the annexes, it was literally 0. But then after I sort of thought about it, and after I did the tower, I said, okay, one way to sort of price out the value of an annex is to say that you need 4 hexes normally to build a town, and this allows you to have 2 less hexes. So essentially it's sort of 2/4 or halfway towards a town. So using that logic, I said you're going to get half the value of that power town. So instead of 8 victory points you get from the power town, you get half of it, which is 4, and then instead of 8 power you get 4. So we translate that all together, and that equals 6 VP plus URP. So that's the first round competency tiles. Hopefully that's helpful to let you think about the value you might get. And now let's turn it all on its head and say we're in our last round. And what are the rankings? So I want to start at the bottom for a second. You'll notice the prior top 3 competencies, 12, 9, and 7, are now right at the bottom and give you no value at all. And that's because you're not going to get any income. When you build it in round 6, there's no income round to follow that. It's just the end of the game. So bad last round tiles. Can you get the value from the steps and the books you get from it? Of course, but you'd much rather get something else that gives you real value. So let's look at the first one. And I've put at the top here the edge scoring, so competency 10. I'm saying the expected usage is 4. I think that's pretty good for one round, but totally could be more. I've seen it be more if you happen to time it right, get the right amount of tools, and set yourself up. You could do more, but let's say 4. So if we do that, that's 12 victory points, and that to me makes it, an elite last round victory point. Next one on the list here is another victory point one, and that is the scholar send. So the competency 8, I'm saying expected usage of 5. I think that's pretty reasonable if you set it up right. You've got 5 scholars, send them each, and that's 10 victory points. So that is a great last round victory points. Last round competency. And could you get more? Definitely you could. No question about it. Next, okay, let's look at our friend competency 11. So that's the 1 tool, 5 victory points, and 2 coins. And I said it in the last slide where sometimes this is the best one you can take in round 6. It doesn't require any special setup like edge scoring and scholars. You don't need anything. You just do it and you get the value. And that's 10 URP plus victory points. Not bad at all. It's a great way to guarantee the value. And double dig. Double dig's pretty cool because it is actually the only kind of late game econ tile. So you get all that econ right away. We're valuing spades at 5, so those 2 spades are worth 10 URP, 10 URP plus victory points. So that makes it sort of the best last round econ tile. So not bad at all. Then we'll talk about competency 4, and that's the science step 1. I'm calling the expected uses 7 because a lot of the time people will sort of get it at least all the way up to 7 for your 4 science tracks, and so it's a good last round victory point tile. I'd put the kind of expected range of 5 to 7 victory points. Probably, I think you get a lot more value if you build it a little bit earlier. You don't have to build in the first round, but say you build it in like the 3rd round. I think you could get much more value. So good for last round, better for earlier. And then we've got our friend the annex here. So like I said before, we valued it at 6 based on helping you get halfway to a town. And it's a good last round victory point tile. And I was sort of down on annexes a bit in the last round. It's the last one on the list, but the way to use an annex really well is to get an incremental town you otherwise would not get. If you got 4 towns when normally like 3 is you're pretty happy with. And one thing I'll mention to the Terra Mystica players, it's a lot easier to get more towns in AOI. It's sort of, in Terra Mystica, getting 3 towns is like, wow, amazing. Most people would get 2. It's sort of more like the 3 is the new 2. in AOI, and 4 is the new 3. Lots of ways to kind of boost your way to get there, and annexes are a way to do it. So, and then we've got the town one. So I said expected usage of 3. So, like I said before, 3 towns is like kind of good. So I think that's a fair expected usage. I'm saying 6 to 8 because you could of course have 4 towns. And this is similar to competency 4, where it gets much better if you get it a few rounds earlier, because you can get a few rounds of value out of it. Next, let's look at competency 1 again, the tower. It's an okay last round victory point tile. Income is a fair bit of it, and all the income is gone. Now you're just getting 2/7 of a power town reward in this calculation. And then we have my dog from the last slide. It's pretty bad in the first round, and it's pretty bad in the last round. You just get 1 hit of that button, which gives you 4 power and 2 URP. So not exciting. And we've already kind of mentioned all the econ or the income tiles get you nothing at all. So that is it for today. Really interested to see if you guys are finding this valuable, and there is more to come. Like I said, we've got factions, palaces, and innovation tiles, maybe even some more. I'm thinking about colors. I sort of built out factions, palace tiles, and innovation tiles, but I need to go and revisit them a little, because some of my thought processes before feel wrong. Like some of them that I thought were no good are really good. And the one that kind of stands out to me is the palace tile that downgrades your school. We all thought, wow, this is like really a weird tile, and there's no way to make it good. And it turns out it's actually really good, and often is a first pick. So I want to go back and crunch the numbers and think about, am I properly really counting the value? Is there a way I can kind of count the value? So once I do some of that rework, we'll come back and talk about palace tiles in addition to factions and innovation tiles. Anyway, thanks so much for joining and watching on YouTube and on Twitch if you're there, and we'll see you soon.